The City of Neenah is pleased to provide video recordings of City Council meetings. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the City of Neenah Common Council meeting for Wednesday, June 19th. The clerk will call the roll, and please indicate your presence on your roll call device.
Alderman Boyette.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Hillstrom.
Here.
Ellis.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Paulnow.
Here.
Steiner.
Here.
Lendrum.
Here.
And Borchard is excused.
Alderman Paulnow will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is to accept and place on file the 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report as presented. Welcome.
Thank you. Is the microphone on?
Yes.
It is. Okay, great. Thank you. And will you be pulling the materials up here for me, or should I display them here?
I can do the packet. Yeah. We'll do that up here.
You'll pull it up there? Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's getting pulled up. I can run through a couple administrative items that I have. My name is John Rader. I think I'm familiar to most of you, but I know there's a few new older people here. So I've been associated with the city's audit for a number of years, and I actually signed a report. So I'm going to spend most of my time on the financial highlights that are being pulled up here, and they should be familiar to those of you who have seen this before. Instead of flipping through all the pages of the financial statements, this is just a high-level summary that I think gets at the point of the financial condition of the city's primary funds. As far as where we're at, we just issued finals 2 weeks ago, actually, June 7th. And I bring that up because in all the years I've been performing or part of the city's financial audit, this is the earliest I can recall. And that's quite a few years. And that credit, it is 3 weeks earlier than last year, too. And the credit to that goes to Andy and Vicki and the entire finance team for the preparation of the audit and how smoothly it goes. We ask for a lot of documents, and so does the utility team when they come out. And they are ready to go. They are in great shape. We actually did not have any entries this year, which I think is the second or third year in a row. That's really remarkable. I always say as a benchmark, about 10 entries or fewer the records are in really good shape, especially for an entity of this size. And to not have any really says a lot about the condition of your records. As far as the financial statements go, we issue what we call an unmodified opinion. That's a clean opinion. It means your financial statements are prepared according to the accounting rules or GAAP, and there's about 100 of those rules or standards in existence right now. The other document that we issue is the reporting and insights, and I think you have an electronic copy of this. And this has a host of different things mentioned in it. It talks about what our responsibilities are as your auditors. We are, just as I mentioned, we're GAAP auditors. We're issuing that opinion, and that's the primary reason that we're hired. And what does that mean? Areas that we focus on during the course of the audit talks about different risks. There's 3 or 4 pages of required communications in there that consist of areas like if we had disagreements with management, if we came across fraud during the course of the audit, a bunch of things like that, and I can say that nothing like that was encountered. It also discusses new accounting rules, or GASBs, and there's a few of them that are out there that are going to apply specifically to next year for the city. I don't think it's going to have a major impact on your financials, though. But the section that probably draws the most attention in this other report is the internal control matters. And that's something I want to bring up as well, because the city has always had a good report, but it's very good this year. We actually did not have any findings, and that includes the one that we have in almost all our governmental reports, the fact that We prepare the financial statements and or we have material entries. So this year, like I said, we didn't have any material entries. And so that, that's one of the qualifications. And the other is, yes, we do prepare the city's financials like we do for most of our governments, but we really feel that with the qualifications between Vicki and Andy, and the fact that Vicki's involvement with preparing a set of financials similar to the cities in the past, there's very good controls here to make sure that we don't do something that's materially misstated. So we don't have that finding in your report. And I can tell you for sure, like I said, that is a very unusual situation. So congratulations on that. There's also a couple of minor points in there from the previous year that are carried forward that they've both been resolved. One is regarding some IT risks. And before Joe retired, those were addressed. And the other is the court deficit. And that's been an ongoing comment for many years. There's been, because of the original rates that were established, kind of a structural ongoing deficit that has occurred. The city paid off its portion this year. The other entity still has a deficit, but that's not the city's issue, so to speak. So we have resolved that comment as well. Okay? So a very clean report. All right, so I'm going to run through the numbers here. There's just 4 pages, and the first couple are focused on your general fund, which, as you know, is your primary operating fund. So page 1 is taking a look at your fund balance. And in fund balance reporting for governmental funds, you can have up to 5 different components. I think of them as buckets. And I'm going to start at the bottom here in this bar graph. A very small portion is what we call non-spendable. And GAAP, the accounting rules drive that. And it's just 21,000. It's almost hard to see. It's that light blue. The black numbers are the previous year, 2022. And that's made up of amounts that have been paid before the fiscal year end, but are really for next year, 2024. So they've been committed or set aside in this non-spendable portion of fund balance. Nothing in restricted, those are external restrictions, nothing in committed. And so moving up, we have 270,000 in assigned. That's comprised of amounts that are tracked internally for the library, carry forwards, and about 185,000 that you're applying to the budget you're operating in right now. Everything else rolls up into that unassigned, and that's at $4.6 million, and that went up from the previous year by 1.2. And if you go down to the middle or 2/3 of the way of this page, you'll see that 1.2 under that actual. It's a very high-level summarized income statement. That was a surplus or positive change in fund balance for the general fund this year. If you compare that to the budget numbers running across there, you can see that the revenues ended up coming in 1.6 million over budget. That was driven primarily by your investment income. That was 1.2 of that 1.6. And for those of you who've been on the council for the last couple of years, you might recall there has been an investment loss for the last couple of years because of the fixed income securities that comprise a large portion of your portfolio. Those took a major hit in the last couple of years, an unrealized manner, and they rebounded from that this year because of the market changes. So you saw the surplus come in there. So 1.6 over in revenues. Expenditures are over as well, but just by 173,000. Many departments are under. The details of all that is in the back of your financial statements on pages 70 to 73. There's no single department or just a couple that drove that. It was really kind of back and forth across the board. Okay, so what does that mean? If we flip to the next page, that $1.2 million plus the small assigned amount, we add those up and we say, well, as far as unrestricted fund balance that's available for operations, how does that compare to your expenditures of the general fund? And we've mapped this out for the last 5 years, kind of a mirror image of each other, but that red line represents the general fund. So at the end of 2023, you had about 17%. So you could, that's equivalent to about 2 months worth of fund balance that is in your general fund at the end of the year. The GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, recommends 2 months, which is also at 17%. So you're right in line with that. The uniqueness of the City of Neenah is you have funded a lot of your employee benefits within an internal service fund, that the benefit accrual fund. So we've also mapped out, well, what if that was actually rolled into the general fund like a lot of other governments? And that would be that purple line, so you would be at closer to 27 or 28%, okay? If you're curious of other places we audit, there's those of your similar size based on population. Those would be the blue dots. Okay. On page 3, shifting gears here, taking a look at debt. So this is laid out in a statutory manner. So it takes a look at your general obligation debt capacity. That black line represents your GO debt limit, and that went up to 155 million, so it increased a nice 13.7% from the previous year. And your debt also went up, but just $7.7 million. Okay, some debt was obviously paid down, but new debt was issued. So at the end of the year, you were utilizing 55% of your debt capacity. That's down just a tad from the previous year when it was 57%. And in 2021, it was at 47%. Now, if you look below there, you will see how that GO debt is broken out. And city represents all your capital funds, your TIF funds, obviously, so that's 72 million. But your utility funds also hold $13 million. So even though it's GO debt, it's not being paid back by taxes, it's user charge based, but you're getting a better rate at the time it was issued, so you issued GO debt. So if you back that out of this calculation of your debt capacity, you would actually be at 46%. The other thing I want to mention here is your revenue debt. You do have some revenue debt. It's a little bit older, dated in your utility funds of 8.7. That's been going down about $2 million a year. And right below there, you can see the CDA still has some of those leased revenue bonds. A lot of that's been refinanced over the years. But at the end of 23, you still had about $3.2 million, and that's scheduled out through 2032. Okay. And lastly, on page 4, as far as the amount that the city's governmental funds pay for debt service, so principal and interest, compared to other non-capital governmental expenditures, and we pull capital out to try to get an apples-to-apples analysis, that's at 21%. And we generally recommend trying to keep that around 20%. There's a lot of considerations that go into that, but in general, that's a nice benchmark that we do bring up. And you're right in that ballpark. The black dots, again, are other municipalities that we audit for the same metric based upon population. So I went through that kind of quickly, but does anybody have any questions on the numbers or anything else for the audit?
I actually will. Is that okay? Getting back to a couple pages before this one, back to the right there. So you said we are at 55% for,
Are you talking about debt?
yeah, debt.
Done, done, one,
Yep.
right there.
Oh, for the debt
Thank you.
capacity?
Yep, you said we're 55 compared to.
55%.
And
if you take
compared to
it strictly by the
57 last
statutes.
year.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I think I have asked in the past, the industry standard should be at 50%? Is that what I remember correctly?
There really isn't an industry standard. There's so much variability, and like a very young active TIF can have a huge influence on this.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that go into it. I think you have to look at the community and look at the history and your debt management. You know, and ideally, you come up with a debt policy. A lot of places do that. And they'll say, well, you know, very few places reach the debt limit. I have never seen it. I've seen it upper 80s with a very large young TIF. But in general, I think, you know, places try to restrict that a little bit further or a range. But without a policy or anything, it's really hard to say. Might be better for your bond advisors to give some input
Okay.
on what a common number would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're not concerned at all with the
I'm
55?
not, no, I'm not.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Uh-huh. Any more questions? If not, thanks a lot for having us. We really enjoy being a part of this audit, especially when the city does do such a great job at preparing for us. Everybody's great to work with.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I just wanted to make a comment that we should be considering your presentation as a review so that you could determine whether you wanted to, as a council, accept and place on file. So I just wanted to make that notation.
Thank you. And maybe this is a process question, because I know previously I seem to recall that we used to run this through the finance committee for discussion. Has that happened, or is that not the process anymore for the financial report used to go through finance committee when I was on council before?
I don't recall that going through the
Okay.
finance committee.
Well, it did, but that's fine. So the questions, like, because I reviewed, the 200 pages of very interesting reading that we have for the main report. If we have questions for that, is this the forum for those questions, if there's multiple questions, or should that be directed to Director Rasmussen? What is the process typically? Because I have some general and some specific.
I think I would direct those to Director Rasmussen.
Okay, and then I just have one for for John. In regard to like some of the start where you have some pie charts there on expenses and such. Now, is there a way to get comparables? I guess I would look at it's in the report. It's Roman numeral 21 to be specific, but you have some good examples of expenses and I think revenues and pie charts. Is there a way to get comparables to other like-sized communities to see where we're at with some of the? You did that with the debt, but I just was wondering if that's ever been asked or been provided to municipalities.
You're referring to the management discussion analysis and the
Correct.
ACR. Yep.
Yes.
Yep, that's a great question. So we don't compile that data for the presentations we do, but you might want to check within these highlights this hyperlink at the bottom of page 3, where what do they call now? Wisconsin Policy Forum. They do compile a lot of data, and that might very well be one of those areas. I was at a board meeting last night, and one of the board members did say that she actually went onto the site and found a lot of useful information for comparative purposes across the state. So that's where I guess I would refer you to.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing is you can always go online. Everybody publishes all the governments publish their financial statements if you're looking at a specific one to compare to.
Yeah, that might be if I had a real slow day, I'd go check everybody else's finance report, but not today. Thank you.
Alderman Erickson.
I'd like to make a motion to accept and place on file the 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report.
Second?
The motion and a second to accept and place on file the 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report as presented. Again, I just want to thank our finance department for the excellent, wonderful job that they did working with Baker Tilly on this. So we appreciate all your effort. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0. Alderman Erickson?
I'd like to make a motion to move items number 3 and 4 from the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting up to occur right now, if that's okay.
Second. There's a motion and a second to move items, is it items 3 and 4?
3 and
did
4.
you say, from the finance report? Can we do a voice vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That is ordered, and you can report on those 2 items.
Okay, reporting out from the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of June 10th, 2024. Item number 3, the committee recommends council approve resolution 2024-08, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed 11,170,000 general obligation promissory notes, series 2024A. And I think I said that.
I think you meant to say 11 million.
11 million, sorry. 11 million. That sounded way too low.
Yeah. Thank you.
The good old days.
Yeah.
There's a motion by Alderman Erickson,
Wait a sec. I gotta push my
seconded by
button here.
Alderman Ellis. Is there any discussion on this item?
Mayor, if I may,
Sure.
I would like to have Brad from Baird come up and give a quick presentation that was included in their packets.
Thank you.
I do want to point out that he's going to show us the financing plan for both resolutions, but we have one resolution for the $11,170,000 that's non-taxable general obligation debt, and then there is a $1.1 million taxable debt, general obligation debt, due to the nature of our borrowing for some TIF activity. And also, I wanted to note that I did verify we only need a majority vote to pass these this evening. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'll walk through the presentation that was included in your packets and answer any questions. Beginning on the summary on the left-hand side of the page, you'll see the issue for this resolution, $11,170,000.
Oh, just one moment. I think we'll have Shar pull that up. It's kind of.
I think it's around page 90 that it starts.
Thank you. Thank you. A couple more pages. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Sure. So a couple pages before this, there's a summary that I'll walk through first. There you go. Here you can see the various projects that are going to be financed with this $11,170,000 issue. All of these projects have been approved by council through your capital budgeting. So you're looking at levy-supported projects of just over $6.9 million, sanitary sewer projects, stormwater, and then a series of TID projects. The right-hand side, that's the taxable issue, $1,082,000. The projects being financed there are all TID related. There's really two components. The TID 13 component, which is the largest of those four, is to fund land acquisition. There's also Fox Cities Regional Partnership capital contribution of the city that's included in with the other TID districts, a small portion with TID 13 also. So on the general obligation notes on the left, there's a 10-year repayment, and that's consistent with the city's practice to get this debt paid off within 10 years. We'll have first interest paid on March 1st of next year, and then each September and March thereafter until the debt's retired. And we've tentatively got a call feature penciled in for March 1st of 2031. So that means the principal that matures in 32, 33, or 34 could be prepaid at the city's option beginning in 2031. The estimated rate for the tax-exempt issue, 4.29%. The taxable issue on the right, the $1,082,000, that also has a 10-year repayment. First interest, again, March 1st of 25, and then every 6 months thereafter. And that issue is going to be callable anytime with a 30-day notice. So the estimated rate for the taxable issue is 6%. The resolutions you're considering follows the same practice that the city used last year, and that is you're considering resolutions that establish the parameters that would allow for these notes to be awarded. So that means a separate resolution doesn't have to come back before the council to finalize rates. What this provides is a lot of flexibility to the city. We're really in a volatile time in this market, and that flexibility is going to allow us to avoid things like Fed meeting dates, or dates when significant economic announcements are released, dates when there's tremendous volatility or volume in the market. So in other words, we're not limited to 1 or 2 days a month that we can finalize. So the parameters are outlined on the bottom. You'll see at the bottom of this page, not to exceed principal amount, a not to exceed interest rate, and in this case, that's 5% for the tax exempt and 6.5% for the taxable. The maturity schedule is locked in. Each individual maturity, each individual principal payment can be adjusted by a dollar amount. However, that adjustment is to provide for flexibility to meet the debt service targets that's going to best fit with the city's capital financing plan. And then the issue costs are limited. The call provisions may be adjusted at the time of issuance, depending on market feedback. And then the authorized signers, there's 3 people required to finalize the issuance, and that's the mayor, the council president, and the city clerk. The rest of this presentation we'll go through the next page, is the timeline. Finance looked at this last week. With your authorization tonight, Baird and city staff will continue to take steps to bring this issue to market. And then we're planning right on August 13th to finalize rates, but that's just the target date. We have the flexibility with your authorization tonight. We'll have the flexibility to shift that date if needed. Anticipated settlement date is September 3rd. The rest of this presentation gets into really the details of the financing plans. We isolate the levy-supported debt. We show a levy impact. We show the impact of the new financing. And then there's placeholders for hypothetical future financings. And then there's a series of charts that outline graphically what these impacts look like. Any future financing after tonight's would come back for further consideration and authorization of the council. So you're not being asked to take any action on future borrowings tonight. They're included just for planning purposes. So I can go into more detail if you prefer, or answer any questions.
Alderman Steiner?
Hello.
Hi.
So I feel like I knew this answer previously, but I don't remember. Why are some items non-taxable related to TID, and then some are taxable related to TID in terms of the debt?
It really has to do with the purpose of the item being financed.
Okay.
So the taxable items are not eligible for tax-exempt financing because it's, for TID 13, it's land assemblage with the intent to sell that land for private development. And then the funding for the Fox Cities Regional Partnership, that's funding operating expenses, and operating expenses are ineligible for tax-exempt financing.
Okay.
So that's what's triggering the difference there.
Okay. And then I know we had talked a little bit about the staggering of the debt issuance. Is that part of the plan, just to decrease kind of the carry forwards and the interest impact overall?
Yes, that's correct. So we used to, again, borrow March 1st. We don't have money by March 1st. We've now changed it to September, so we're borrowing more after the fact as things are for sure coming to fruition and happening. And we can still adjust this $11.1 million down before we go out to sale. So we can still look at where are we at with our spending. Did we come in under on some things that we won't have to borrow for? So we'll have that flexibility that we won't have to borrow.
I forgot to
much.
mention that in the
Yeah.
presentation, and I did mention it at finance, but these sets of resolutions provides tremendous flexibility that the borrowing amount can be reduced if these project costs are fine-tuned further. And we can reduce the borrowing right up until the time that we're finalizing interest rates. We have that much flexibility. Now, the council is maintaining its policy-setting role in that there's a maximum, so we can't go the other way. We can't increase the financing without coming back to council.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a great practice that we're
And I
moving
think
forward
what we're going to do, we pulled reports because we started project accounting this year too, so we can see what we've spent per project versus budget. And we are going to, at the end of July, look at the actuals versus budget. And then I'm going to meet with every department head to say, okay, where are we? Are you done with this project? What else are you planning on spending, so that I can borrow less if I can.
Okay, that's great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Then there is a motion and a second on the floor for Resolution 2024-08, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $11,170,000 general obligation promissory notes. Seeing no further discussion, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0. Just want to thank you very much for all of your help with this as well, and we appreciate you every year.
Do we also have to approve item number 4?
Yes, did
Okay.
you report on that?
Nope. Item number 4, committee recommends council approve resolution 2024-09, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $1,100,000 taxable general obligation promissory notes, Series 2024B, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Erickson, seconded by Alderman Ellis, to approve Resolution 2024-09. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
And that concludes the part of my report.
Portion of your report. Okay, thank you very much. Back onto the top of the agenda, there are no mayor's appointments. Next item, number 4, is approval of council proceedings. Is there any objection to unanimous consent of approval of the council minutes and proceedings of June 5th, 2024? Seeing no objection, those minutes and proceedings are approved. The next item on the agenda is the public forum. Is there anyone here who would like to speak during the public forum? Welcome. Please come up and give your name and address.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Brian Stafford, 1132 Tuller in Neenah, of course. And I'm also Winnebago County Board Supervisor for District 10. Okay. So I was asked to come and just give an update. We had a county board meeting last night. And with that meeting, we discussed ARPA, or Spirit funds. Specifically, there were several projects that were questioned. One of them was the barricades for the city of Neenah and the city of Menasha. So I just wanted to give everyone an update what happened there and kind of my role in the questioning of county executive. Okay, so there were a few things that he mentioned. He recognized that there's short staffing and things have been delayed, and went on and did some other things relative to that. I did express in my comments that there's general frustration. And I'm gonna say it's frustration on my end as a county board supervisor in that we approved these funds back in April. And here we are, June. And so we talked about what is going on, you know, what's the cause of that. And I'll just say, you can watch the feed. I'll just say that there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of hand pointing, and I just really don't have the patience for that. So I said I just expressed frustration from the city of Neenah. I've heard from many from the city saying that, you know, they've tried to reach out to the county with no avail. And I just mentioned that that's unacceptable. And it is, it's unacceptable. We need to work together, right? We do. At the county level, city level, we need to work together. And it's an ongoing theme of mine, actually, is talking with each other, not at each other. So I'm not gonna get on that soapbox. But beyond that, I also suggested that we have to figure out a path forward on this, right? That means we have to sit down face to face and have conversations. But it's just back and forth is not effective. It's just not effective. So pressing further on where we are, because I think that's where everyone's kind of interested in, where we are with all of this, right? So the agreement, from what I understand, was sent out on Monday. And I asked, okay, so what happens from that point, right? So what I was told last night was once the agreement is signed and sent back to Director Kaiser, who's the finance director, Winnebago County, that they would be cutting a check for the funds within a week. And I did ask, by the way, as a county board supervisor, I have not seen this agreement. I have not seen any of the support documentation that's required. Nor have I seen anything, or any of our board members seen anything relative to the consistency of requirements from project to project. The answer, by the way, was that, well, they'll supply that to the board within 2-3 weeks. And then I asked, well, why 2-3 weeks? This seems like a pretty easy thing to do. So I followed up after the meeting, just further investigating on, I'd like to see what this requirement is. And not only of this for the city of Neenah, but the city of Menasha, right? I want to make sure that we're consistent here, as well as the other myriad of projects that have been approved. You know, the county got $32 million Half of that went to community projects. And it's important at this point that we make sure that this money is being spent appropriately, consistently, and with proper oversight. So I think there are a lot of us on the board who have been the voices of, hey, we need to make sure that we're doing things on the up and up. And I feel like we're at a point now where we have most of the board at that level, especially just from the conversation we had last night. So I'm hoping that means that from a legislative point of view, right, that we can become more actively involved in seeing what's going on with these funds and the distribution of these funds. So with that, that's the update. Right? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your advocacy for the city of Neenah.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public forum portion of tonight's meeting? Seeing no one, I will close the public forum and move on to Mayor Council consideration of public forum issues. Is there anyone who would like to comment? Alderman Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Brian for coming tonight, giving us that update. I'd also welcome you to stick around. I do have a council directive towards the end of the meeting on that topic, and you might be able to answer some questions that may or may not come up. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, moving on to item number 7. Is there any objection to unanimous consent of the approval of temporary Class B picnic license application for Bergstrom Mahler Museum Art After Dark? Seeing no objection to that, that item is approved. The next item, reports of standing committees, Special Public Services and Safety Committee meeting of June 19th. Chairman Lendrum.
Thank you, Mayor. We met just before council at 6:45 tonight, and there was a Special Public Services and Safety Committee meeting. We had one item, and I want to mention that if we have any questions, Kim Bitterman, Principal Planner at East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, is here in the audience if you have any questions. So item number 1, consideration of committee recommendation on resolution 2024-07, planning organization policy board structure and redesignation agreement, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lendrum, seconded by Alderman Hillstrom. Is there any discussion on this item? Paul, no.
Thank you. I just want to say I think it's a great opportunity for the municipalities to get more involved with this process and get more familiar with the East Wisconsin Regional Planning. You go to their website and you realize how much and how many tentacles they have in this part of the state. So I'm looking forward to us having more input on that. And like I'd said at the meeting, I hope we can have, and I'm going to talk to Council President, and maybe having a future committee of the whole meeting to maybe have a presentation about that group in depth and how we're going to fit into that. Maybe have some of the, because I remember as a county board, it was more, when I was on the county board previously, it was more a county executive appointment, kind of county focused, which is fine, but now we're going to get much more involved. I think it's a huge opportunity for City Neenah. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is for consideration of committee recommending resolution 2024-07 supporting and approving the new Appleton Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Board structure and redesignation agreement. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
And that's the end of that report.
Thank you for your report. The regular Public Services and Safety Committee meeting for June 11th was canceled, so moving on to the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of June 10th.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting out from the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of June 10th, 2024. Item number 1, the committee recommends council approve the amendment to the first addition to Freedom Acres subdivision development agreement, and I so move.
Okay. There's a motion by Alderman Erickson and seconded by Alderman Ellis. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to approve the amendment to the first addition to Freedom Acres subdivision development agreement. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
The second item is the committee recommends council approve the third addition to the homes at Freedom Meadows subdivision development and fee agreement. And this item will be voted on under the Board of Public Works. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda then, regular Plan Commission meeting for June 11th was canceled. So moving on to the Board of Public Works meeting of June 12th. Vice Chairman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. The minutes from this meeting can be found on the city website. This evening I have 7 informational items and 2 council action items, so hang in there. The first informational item is the board approved pay request number 3, contract 1-24, sanitary and storm sewer, water main and street construction on Belmont Avenue, Belmont Court, Cedar Street, and Stevens Street to David Tenner Corporation in the amount of $518,715.28. Item B, the board approved pay request number 2, contract 2-24, sanitary and storm sewer, water main and street construction on East Doty Avenue to Kruja Construction Incorporated in the amount of $200,226.63. Item C, the board approved pay request number 3, contract 3-24, sanitary and storm sewer, water main and street construction on Bayview Road, Quarry Lane, and Reed Street to Donald Hippus and Sons in the amount of $281,948.08. Item D, the board approved pay request number 1, contract 4-24, sanitary and storm sewer, water main and street construction for the South Park Avenue easement to Scott Lamers Construction in the amount of $18,719.75. Item E, the board approved pay request number 1, contract 6-24, curb and gutter, storm sewer, street overlay, and trail parking for Jewelers Park Drive to MCC Incorporated in the amount of $202,944.22. Item F, the board approved pay request number 1, contract 7-24, concrete pavement and sidewalk repairs and new sidewalk installation on Baldwin Street and Plummer Court to Jim Fisher Incorporated in the amount of $137,830.86. The last informational item, the board recommended the Waterworks Commission to award contract 2-24W Water Booster Station, contract B, for process, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing construction to Sable Mechanical LLC of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, in the amount of $724,900.00. Now, the first council action item this evening, the board recommends council approve the third addition to the Homes of Freedom Meadows subdivision development and fee agreement, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Hillstrom, seconded by Alderman Boyette, to approve the third addition to the Homes at Freedom Meadows subdivision development and fee agreement. Is there any discussion on this item? Paul, no.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just hoping maybe, I don't know if it'd be Engineer Merton or Director Hayes could explain, and maybe even Director Rasmussen, the fee agreement, why there is a new fee being included in these subdivisions, because I think it makes sense, but I think it would be good to have an explanation.
Sure, I'll do my best. So we are always looking at opportunities to help with the challenges of bringing new development to the community, and particularly single-family development has been one of those. One of the things that we have done in order to help the
the developer with the cash flow is to move fees that historically were due upfront or financed through the city. We have moved some of those fees to the building permit. Historically, the fees have typically been paid at the time of a lot sale. Obviously, these go with the property, so they are paid again with the building permit. We have gone to the permitting, the new permitting software here several years into that now, which allows the option to pay by credit card. So they are paying these fees in addition to their building permit fees with credit card. As you know, the subdivision agreements often are approved well in advance of development actually occurring, so there's some time delay there before building permits actually get to be issued. Director Rasmussen and her staff recognized that we were seeing an uptick in fees because we pay, as you may know, a fee to the credit card companies for that convenience. As we looked into that, we realized that we have in our Freedom Acres area, those homes are being constructed primarily by one developer, or majority of those by one developer, who has chosen to pay those fees with credit card. And so we saw this uptick in the charge. Once we recognized that we were seeing this issue, we have now since gone with this current agreement to apply that, to essentially extend those fees onto the developer. If they choose, we are providing the benefit of deferring those fees to the building permit. That, I think the theory on our part was we shouldn't incur a cost to do that. So they have been put onto in the development with the developer's acknowledgement that if they are going to defer those fees to the building permit, that there would be a charge when they are paid with credit card. I hope that answered that.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so everybody knows that this is kind of subdivision related and agreement related, because it's not like every building fee, and I just wanted to make that clear because Director Rasmussen sent a good email out informing everybody, I want everybody in the public to know that's just, there's a specific reason, as I understand it from Director Rasmussen's email, that the building permit cost in the subdivision agreements weren't really covered for some of those administrative costs as well. So this will kind of fix two things, and I'd say thanks to Director Rasmussen for catching that. So
if I could add, just so the council is aware, and I know we talked about it when we went to the permitting software, but we have built for building permits, that additional charge is built into the fee itself. We have seen, I believe, a significant benefit from going to that process as opposed to the old days of checks. One, certainly, and maybe the most important, is customer service. Our customers are able to buy their permits 24/7, so that is certainly a benefit to the resident. We are seeing a significant cost savings on our part, and I ran numbers just out of coincidence. So people, when they ask me about this, I'll tell them we have a Midwest nice. So when people have come into our office, it's a, how you doing? What's the weather like? How are the Packers doing? There's a 10-minute conversation. So I just did some math this afternoon. If I have it here somewhere, if we issue 200 building fences a year, that's about a permit a day. It's about what we do. And there's a 10-minute conversation around that permit. That equates to 2,000 minutes a year. That equates to 37 hours. That's almost 1 week of a 52-week year talking about the weather or whatever. So we have, and we have shown that we had a full-time position that was about $60,000 a year. That has gone down to a part-time position that's less than half of that amount. So these fees are, I think sometimes there's a concern, hey, what's happening with these fees? But there's also a savings on these things that are, I believe, are fairly significant and probably more importantly for the community.
thank you, Director Hayes, and that's why I wanted it explained, because everybody sees fee increase and they think, okay, here we go again. And I think it's important to explain to people why and how things are going.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device for approving the third addition to the Homes at Freedom Meadows subdivision development and fee agreement. That motion passes 8-0.
Item B, and the last item this evening, the board recommends council approve final pay request, contract 12-24, storm sewer and water main construction on South Commercial Street for Douglas Stormwater Pond to DeGroot Incorporated in the amount of $20,364.68, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Hillstrom, seconded by Alderman Lundrum. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the final pay request for contract 1224. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you for your report. Next item on the agenda, reports of neighborhood groups. The report from the June 18th, 2024 Business Improvement District Board meeting. Alderman Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting now we did our annual walkthrough for the bid district, and it was wonderful with the committee and our folks and our friends from Future Neenah. We covered the 4-block radius. Prior to that, we approved a couple of grants for some new signs for a couple of the new businesses we've got downtown. We were also informed that one of the vacant buildings has recently been purchased, and the new owners are working on what they're going to put in there, but we don't know what yet. So the other issue that we talked about was what we may want to look for lighting decoratively for downtown as it relates to the trees. So a lot of good thing came up there. And then the last thing that reported out is that on Thursday, June 27th, is Employee Appreciation Day, and F&I is really going all out. They have a bunch of flyers. You're free to have some, and we ask that you and any of your employees feel free to participate. That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda is the library report from June 19th. Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting out from the Neenah Public Library Board of Trustees that met today at 4 o'clock. A lot of great things to report out. The first is that circulation is up 6% from last year at this time. The youth summer library reading program has surpassed the numbers from all of last year at this point. We have 330 adult summer reading program signups, and just a little synopsis of what happened today. We had 134 people for story time. The library is very, very popular. We are very busy this summer. During the month of June, there are free lunches that are being offered Monday through Friday, and with the Menasha Library being closed and the Appleton Library being closed right now, we are seeing additional traffic. So it's a great place to be, a lot of activities going on. So if you would like to visit, one other really fun thing that is brand new at the library, and this might be intriguing to some people. Sunday, July 28th from noon to 3:30, they're going to have a repair cafe. And what this is you bring in your broken items, and our fixers will do their best to repair them for free. So computers, phones, small appliances, electronics, sewing and mending, jewelry, watches, and more. So if you have anything that needs repair and you want to, instead of throwing it in the garbage, you want to see if there's somebody that can fix it, bring it in and see if it's fixable. So I think that's a fun program that will be very, very popular. But as always, please remember to check out books and visit the library website.
Thank you for your report. I just want to additionally mention I took Library Director Hardina Wilhelm with me to WHBY on Monday, and I learned so much more about what's going on at the library, just having that conversation with her on the drive up, and then all that she was reporting during that radio show. It was fantastic, and we're so proud of our Neenah Public Library. The next item on the agenda is the Neenah Arts Council. Again, Alderman Erickson.
Thank you. The Neenah Arts Council met on June 12th in the council chambers, and we have a lot of activities coming up. The first is this Saturday, we will be at the farmer's market. We will have the theme is a veggie theme for the farmer's market, so it's a arts and crafts project. And then we will be at Community Fest, and then followed by July 20th. We will be back at the farmers market for their for their Kids Day, and that theme is a beach theme. So lots of activities going on this summer, and we're really action-packed, and we have a very active group of members. So I'd like to thank our volunteers. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda is the Landmarks Commission meeting. Alderman Weber.
Thank you, Mayor. The Landmarks Commission met on Wednesday, June 12th. Minutes can be found on the city website. 2 items of note. Now that the Neenah Menasha Intertribal Powwow is confirmed to be being held on September 14th, the Commission has now started planning around the Voyager canoe trips and also looking for support for the horse-drawn wagon tour, so more information to come for both of those. And we also started a process the commissioners did to review the Landmark Commission information materials, starting to look at doing some revisions and updates, bring those more accurate and make sure that we're not missing things. So more to report on that as well as we come forward. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. Next item, are there any petitions? There are no petitions. Next item, council directives. Item A, Alderman Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had asked to have this. My intention is for information and a learning experience for the council, but mainly I wanted to get to the bottom of it, if you will, with the news report that was in the Oshkosh newspaper where I think Brian had touched on last night, being as there was a contract out there we didn't know about, and turns out it wasn't a contract. We got an email and it's something different. And so just trying to get the information straight, because again, it's in the newspaper, but then we don't know what's going on. And the county board didn't know until it was brought up last night. So I just wanted our council to be informed. The second issue that was brought to my attention was on Memorial Day. We had the parade procession, and we were told in the very beginning about the police brigades that we were not going to be able to use the city vehicles any longer because our insurance would not cover damage due to any potential damage due to the vehicles because they were not being used in their initial, I don't know what the word is, their process, exactly, like how they're intended to be used. And yet barricades and city trucks were used for that event. So it's a conflict of information there, and I just want to get that cleared up. Again, just trying to get all the straight and narrow, basically, because there's a lot of confusion with this. And then, so that's why I asked for something from CIVMIC, because they're the ones that were told that wouldn't cover any damage. And then lastly, I'm just curious about education-wise, if maybe we don't have to revisit our grant policy that we have in place, and maybe that could be revamped a little bit using this scenario, and we could plan for the future so that something like this doesn't happen again, or that we learn from this and we grow and make things better. And so with that, I did ask Brian to stick around so we could maybe ask questions that weren't answered or weren't asked earlier too about what was all said last night, because I actually had questions for Brian. I haven't had a chance to talk to him, but I'm curious to know too, like, I understand that Neenah has the barricades and others had purchased them as well. And I'm just curious if Menasha and some of the other municipalities got the same MOU as the city of Neenah did. And so that again is another issue that I was curious to find out, because again, you know, we want to do what's right for our city and get to the bottom of this, if you will. So that's why I wanted to bring this up as a council directive. Thank you.
Okay, so you're making the motion for the council directive to occur, and it was made previously. So, and seconded by Alderman Erickson.
Right.
So,
now we vote on it, I guess?
right, we vote on it, and do you want, I feel like maybe we should have the discussion at the point where we're then actually doing a presentation. Though I really appreciate Supervisor Stafford being here and waiting. But I feel like this is the point where we're voting on it, then to review it at a point, if that's acceptable. Because I don't know that when we're
that's fine.
voting on a council directive, that's the time to actually address the council.
Sure, and that's fine, and I can always ask Brian to kindly come back to us when we do that as well, and I'm sure he'd be more than willing to fill us in on some of those details too. So I appreciate you, Brian. Thank you. So sure, and I'll go ahead and make that motion.
There's the motion by Alderman Boyette and seconded by Alderman Erickson. Alderman Erickson?
I just have a question. Do we want to put a timeline for this to bring it back for discussion?
Yeah. How much time do we need to get this information? Next council meeting?
It's your directive.
I know, well, I'm asking them what would be, how much time do they think they need to get this information?
I think that's...
Chief? Yeah, I think it would be easy to have at the next council meeting.
Okay, sounds good to me. Okay, so then we'll have it by the next, add that into my motion to have the information brought to the next council meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderman Paulno?
Yeah, that's just what I was going to ask, who specifically was going to come with the information, because it said, in the directive, it said the police department, but the chief said he answered the question. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to approve this council directive? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the council directive brought forth by Alderman Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. As we talked about at our last meeting, it used to be, long time ago in a land far away, that the Public Works and Services Committee was the committee that, at that time, the special use permits would come to. They would be given the heads up by those who looked at them, or the heads down, and then Public Works and Services would report that mostly as information out to the City Council. In the past few years, trying to streamline some things, I understand that we have a group of great folks that go through and they're looking at these. However, there seems to be an unintended disconnect at times to members of the council on some of these events that are upcoming, so we can be knowledgeable. My recommendation in the form of a motion would be that when special use requests come up, the committee that reviews for the pluses or the minuses would then refer those to Public Works and Services Committee so that they can report out to the council as an information piece at their next available joint, and I would so move.
There's the motion by Alderman Ellis and seconded by Alderman Paulno, for the council directive to revisit the special event permit ordinance and permitting process. Alderman Paulno.
Just kind of pick on Alderman Ellis. It's the Public Service and Safety Committee.
Thank you.
Maybe it had a different name in the past.
Yeah, it's like, I know in the 80s that probably was what it was called.
Yeah, I know, I still speak Aramaic too.
As long as you don't start wearing leg warmers to the council. No, I think in the process, as I remember, wasn't that long ago, it went through Public Service and Safety, and then it was basically recommended to council, and usually that was a consent agenda item, I think, typically, which is kind of similar to what you're referring to. But it was the process in place was, it was reviewed and vetted at the committee and then read out at the council as a consent agenda. But it's my understanding that you would like to go back to that process for this council directive? And,
Yes.
and to revise or rechange that ordinance that was in place, basically just,
Yes.
okay. That's my understanding as well. And I would say, I guess I would look to the new Director Kaiser, otherwise known as Engineer Merton. I don't know if that would be something that would be in your realm as far as the ordinance revision, or who would that be, as far as to know what a deadline would be required, if that makes sense.
That would be in my wheelhouse.
Okay, so if that was the case, what would be a proper timeline to come back with us on a revised
We could have
ordinance?
something together for the next Public Services and Safety Committee meeting.
Okay, fair enough. So should we add that to, add that to the council directive, or leave it as is? Because now it's kind of, I guess,
Yes.
okay, cool, I'm good with that.
I just have a point of clarification. So if that is passed, we have some events coming up in August. Would that affect those August events? And if so, that it might be late for the timing.
I guess if you're asking me, if the question is, would that impede your process to have to come through committee now because you're halfway through those permitting processes, what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes, we're halfway through the permitting, the special event permitting year.
My belief is it should be all new items that you just, moving forward. I wouldn't want to impede your processes on something in progress.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion? City Attorney.
Thank you. Just to clarify, there was the directive says revisit the special event permit ordinance. There was some conversation that referred to that as a special use permit. Those are two different things. I'm assuming you mean the special event permit. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderman Erickson.
Yes, I have a question. When, this is for the city clerk, when did that occur? Do you remember when that change took place? Because I honestly can't remember.
I believe it was May of last year. Was it May? You were on vacation, James. The May?
Might have been June.
Might have
but
been June.
Yeah, May, June. Yeah. It might have been end of May.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device for the council directive to revisit the special event permit ordinance. That motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Mayor. My second one, this is the interesting one for the group, and I wanted to thank our Director Hayes for having a good time speaking with you and learning what's been going on in the past 25 years with this issue. But to make a relatively long story short, time to get into the competitive phase, and we've all had those conversations. It's a different arena today than it was back in 80-81 when our council at that time took this out of the realm of possibility that you could purchase at the stores, and a lot's changed since then. There's been a higher level of education. There has been more cooperation Even from, I look at the area at Tavern Lake where they sponsor ride homes. So there's a myriad of things that have altered from those days. But one of them is also the inclusion of convenience stores have become the new neighborhood grocery stores in a sense. And if Neenah does not work into that arena, those communities around us will have the opportunity, which is, in my opinion, is an unfair advantage from a business standpoint than what we have at this time. With that being said, and I'm sure we're going to have some discussion on this, I would put forth the motion, and everyone can help me if I don't say this right, is that we would instruct with the lead of community development with the appropriate department heads to put together a ordinance to bring back to the council at the next meeting what it would look like to allow beer. And I don't know if wine at this time can be there, so I will keep the word wine out of this because I understand that's classified as a spirit. So we'll play at that base level of beer at this time for council consideration, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Ellis and seconded by Alderman Steiner. That is to revisit the sale of beer at convenience stores as a council directive. Is there any discussion on this? Alderman Palmo.
Just so I'm clear on process then was, and I recall that it used to be allowable, but I just don't want to misspeak because I haven't been here in a while. Bringing this ordinance, would this ordinance come back right to council?
Yes.
Okay.
Wouldn't go through
Okay.
committee.
Just so I'm clear on the understanding.
Yeah, and
I feel like it would go through committee, wouldn't
if
it?
I could add to that, I think what I've done in the past, and if it would be okay with the council, I would propose to bring forward the components kind of in a bullet point list of here's what the ordinance would contain. If there are anything that's not favorable to the council, we can strike those. And once we have a list, if you will, of kind of what the ordinance would contain, not to pick on the attorneys, but they can put all the legalese around it.
Right.
So what I would do is we could bring that forward to the council. If there's a consensus that, yep, that's what we would like to see, we can then put it in the ordinance form, bring it through committee and on to council.
And respective of the good point, Director, thank you. If I may then amend my motion to make that reflection that Director Hayes will come back to us at the next council meeting with those points for the council to take consideration there too.
So I think that's a great idea because then you have a full review of the ordinance. I think because that ordinance is pretty dated, if I remember correctly. So a full review, I think, is warranted.
Anything additional, Alderman Palmer?
No, thank you.
Alderman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just so the newer members on the council know, I guess I've been on the council off and on since 2007. This has come before us at least 3 times since then. I've been voted down all 3 times. So that's all I'll say for now.
Alderman Boyette.
Thank you. I was just going to ask Director Hayes if you could, when you bring in those ideas, if you could give us a little bit of history on this, because we do have new people, specifically the last 2 times that was brought up, because one was more recent than not, and just to kind of give a background if you could.
Sure, what I can do is provide you, I think there's at least 3 memos, and I probably would have a new memo now. Quite frankly, would look back at the most recent and maybe make some tweaks to that. So I would provide those historic memos for your reading pleasure if you're having a cocktail with it or something.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Is there any further discussion? And please cast your vote for the council directive that is on the floor. That motion passes 8-0. Is there any unfinished business? Under new business, Seeing none. Under new business, the Arrowhead Park Development Status Report, Alderman Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. There was a Arrowhead walkthrough on June 11th for companies interested in submitting a response to the RFQ that was sent out, and that was due today. So there now will be a selection from those several different companies, and then they have till July 30th to submit their proposals. Then they'll go to Public Service and Safety, projected to be in August, and then back to council beginning of September when construction can start. And this is for sewer, water, and grading at Arrowhead Park. That concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. Are there any other announcements that could come before council? Director Rasmussen.
Tonight I have copies of the ACFR that was presented tonight for your reading pleasure. If you'd like, it also is available online on our website. But just let me know, I do have copies here.
Thank you.
I did, yeah.
Alderman
It
Weber.
went away, sorry. I just like to pass a note along from Director Kading and Park and Rec. They're looking for some support to manage the booth at the Community Fest. To quote him, it's a really easy gig. So if anybody's interested, please just email him and let him know if you've got some time to help on that. So thank you.
Are there any other announcements? Seeing none, is there a motion? At the end? Yeah, it's on.
I'd make a motion to go into closed session.
Okay. The city attorney would like to have the motion be to convene into closed session and then reconvene in open session as one motion. So is there a motion to move into closed session and reconvene into open session following the closed session?
So move.
There's a motion by Alderman Ellis, seconded by Alderman Boyette. Alderman Paulno.
Thank you, Mayor. City Attorney, I'm just curious, why would we need to do the motions both at the same time? I'm just, like what?
Because if you make the motion,
Yes.
if you make the motion to go
you
into
have to,
close,
you have to use your mic, sorry.
if you make the motion to go into closed session, there's a possibility you will not come back into open session. And what I want to make sure is that the council has the opportunity to react to that information that they receive, because if you don't do that, you can't reconvene in open session and you're done for this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, there's a motion and a second to move into closed session and then to reconvene into open session. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You have to vote on your voting device.
Oh, sorry. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-0.
The City of Neenah is pleased to provide video recordings of City Council meetings. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.